and I would say to people listening, yes, I know I'm not saying it isn't tough at times, but come on, we've got the opportunity to create beautiful businesses, to live our lives the way we want to live them. If the sun shines and the surf's up, we can turn the phone off and go and catch a few waves. We can go and sit in a cafe and do a bit of work. We have that. I mean, let's keep it quiet.
Welcome to the Tradies Business Show with Warwick Bidwell. Talking business ownership, the nuts and bolts, and everything in between.
G'day and welcome to the Tradies Business Show. Was here with you for another episode. We're getting close to 200 episodes. I should plan a big celebration for that, but I'm going to focus on today's episode. Cracker today. I know I say that a lot, and honestly, I'm pretty proud of the content that this show has produced over the last coming up 3 years. Can you believe it? Anywho, I loved today's episode. Always like chatting to Rob. I'm actually lucky enough to have the opportunity to appear on his podcast soon. So go and check out the Flying Solo podcast. It's one that Rob hosts, and you'll probably hear my dulcet tones. I doubt that, but you'll hear me rabbiting on on his podcast. Today's episode is all about word-of-mouth business and how to get more. Word-of-mouth, referrals, seems to be a bit of a mystery for a lot of people, including me sometimes. But I hear a lot of people say that their business is based on word-of-mouth, but they can't tell me how the heck they do that. How are they generating word-of-mouth? It's like just sitting around waiting for it to drop in your lap. Or you could listen to today's episode and get a bunch of really cool tips from Rob Gerrish. Used to have his own ad agency in the UK, sold that to Saatchi & Saatchi. If you haven't heard of them, look them up. One of the world's biggest creative agencies and advertising agencies. Recently sold his latest business to good old Koshy, David Kosh, from TV and Better Business Builders, I think his business is called. Sorry, Koshy. I should get Koshy on the show and get his perspective on it. But Robert Gerrish, very cluey man, great writer. He's just released his second book, The 1 Minute Commute. You should check that out. We talk about that in the episode, but we do dig in pretty deep into how to generate more word of mouth and referral business, and it doesn't have to cost you money. Well, not much anyway. So enjoy this one. I really hope you get some value out of it. I actually learned a few things as well. And I drop a big bombshell in the middle of the episode. I commit to something. It's pretty scary. You'll have to listen to find out what it is. Alrighty, so joining me on today's episode of the Tradies Business Show, I have a former guest. I don't get to say that as often as I probably would like, but I have a former guest on the show, and very excited to talk to today's guest again. He's just released a book, or second book actually. Welcome back, Rob Gerrish.
Thank you so much, Warwick. Look, it's great to be back. It's funny, hearing you say that about it's not often you sort of welcome a guest back again. I do a couple of podcasts, and you've just reminded me I'm the same. I don't do it. Anyway, I'm going to get you back on our podcast if that's all right.
Well, there's been a lot of water under the bridge. We were just chatting before I hit record, mate. I think it's probably it'd be 2 to 3 years, maybe 3 years.
Yeah, I'd say it must be getting there 3, unfortunately.
It was early on, because the Tradies Business Show is coming up to its 3 years, I think. It's just gone 3 years actually since we kicked this thing off. So
there you go.
So give us an update, mate. What's been going on in your world?
Crikey, how long have we got? Well, look,
we'll keep it to a 45-minute episode. How's that?
Yeah, okay. Well, look, quite a lot. I'll so basically, for those that don't know, and that's probably a good number of people listening. When we last spoke, I was running a business called Flying Solo, which is a community of Australian solo businesses, a business that I started about 12 years ago. And I sold that business last year. So at the end of last year. So that was kind of always a plan. And the plan delightfully came to fruition in about November of 2017. So as I talk to you today, I'm sort of footloose and fancy free, and I'm back very much on my own again, which is enormously pleasurable. I mean, not to say that the last dozen years in flying solo wasn't also fantastically good fun. But I'm now back, doing my thing all by my little old self again, which is, it probably doesn't feel that differently, to be honest, because all the time that we ran flying solo, we ran it very much as a kind of collective of individuals that were coming together, to run that business. So, I've always had my home office. I've always had an office in the city, and I kind of flip between the two. So, it doesn't feel that different, I guess. I also do a little bit of consulting work to Flying Solo, still do their podcasts and things. But as you mentioned as well, I've knocked out a cheeky book.
Just popped one out, mate, just as you do.
Well, yeah, it's really funny, I know the purpose of today isn't necessarily to talk about sort of business exits, but gosh, if ever you want to, I had such a good experience selling our business. And I know for a number of people listening, they might be sitting there thinking, well, who's going to buy my business? It's only me.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of who I was a few years ago. It was me. I've always had two good, delightful partners, but I mean, a lot of it was centered around me. So I gradually kind of designed the business so that I could, slip out the back door. And, and I would say to people listening, that is possible for you too. So, and the whole process of selling was just gorgeous. I loved every minute of it. People say it's stressful. I found it so pleasurable. It was just terrific.
Yeah, right.
Really good fun. And I've sold it to Koshi, David Kosh from, people would know him from his
Congratulations, mate.
TV show. Yeah, thank you. And he's a lovely man. And he's got a nice business there, and Flying Solo fits into it really well. So yeah, but then in this, during the course of selling the business, I was also busy writing, and I've been wanting to write this book, which is kind of, if you recall, I wrote a book called Flying Solo in 2005, and that did pretty well. And then this book now is kind of all I knew then, plus all I've learned in the last 12 years, all about running a business kind of by yourself or with a small team, working largely from a home office. It's called the 1 minute commute. And that the idea is that it's, your commute from your kitchen to your office, which or wherever.
I literally did before we started this interview, mate. I made the commute from my very hardworking espresso machine to join you on the interview, mate.
I'm with you. Yes, it should be called the 1 minute espresso. But
yeah.
So
that could be the follow-up book, Rob.
Yeah, maybe it's so it's it's been a lot of fun doing it, and it really kind of focuses your mind. As you would know, when you're creating, a bulk of content like a book, you become so observant. And I quote lots and lots of people from the community, tradespeople, creatives, writers, anybody working sort of pretty well by themselves. And I refer to and quote a lot of them throughout the book. So I spend a lot of time looking at, marketing, how to find clients, retain clients, grow your business, work productively, work efficiently. And there's a whole chapter on selling a business, not surprisingly. So
some recent experience, mate.
Yeah, it's been good fun. And look, the lovely thing is, as I speak to you now, just waving it again, I'm just back from a few days down in Melbourne, and I was doing some podcast interviews down there, and it's so nice when you see your book in bookshops.
It's great for the ego, isn't it, mate?
It is. Well, it is. It's sad but true. And I confess, I stood there, looking at, watching whether anyone was actually going to buy it whilst I was there, and then I could pounce on them and be a complete plonker. Hey, I'm the guy who wrote that.
Or you could just sidle over and say, I've read that book. It's really good.
Yeah. You should apparently the guy's really cool as well. Really. I resisted all that, but I did sit and gloat for a short moment. But unfortunately, I had my family with me. So my teenage son, he's not about to accept any bullshit from his dad, so he just completely ridiculed me, which is a good thing, brings you back to earth, doesn't it?
Good reality check, mate.
Yeah.
So you talk about the book, and you've written one previously. Just I guess a little aside here. I don't know too many tradies that would write a book or probably even want to write a book, but what's involved in actually putting it together, and what are some of the spin-offs that you get out of it other than obviously book sales?
Well, look, that's a great question. There's a couple of questions in there. The first thing is, I'm not going to make myself wealthy selling books. That's the truth of it. In particular, I'm writing to a small business book. The last book became a bestseller, but frankly, to be a bestseller of business books in Australia isn't terribly difficult. I think you have to sell, I think it's 4,000 or 5,000 copies, and that classes as a bestseller in business. So, the guys listening will be able to do the maths. 4,000 or 5,000 copies times whatever the author gets, which is a couple of dollars, over a few years, it's not going to change your life. That, no, if you were writing, Shades of Grey or something, Shades of Grey, the tradesman's issue, you probably do well with that. But when you're writing something like this, a business book, it's not about the money.
Yep.
It absolutely isn't. It's purely for profile. The thing with author, from author comes the word authority. And if you want to become known as an authority in your area, then having a book under your belt is a pretty good thing to have. Now, sure, there's a whole lot of people that are much more skilled than I am who will do lots of events and have piles of books at the back of the room and flog them. I've never been crash hot at doing that. I mean, I love going to events, but I just get all sort of bashful and I just can't sit. I'll sell a couple every now and again, but I'm not big in that fun. So it really is just a profile raising thing. Gets you seen out there and hopefully adds a little bit of kind of reinforcement to, being something of a specialist in an area. But it's interesting when you mentioned about your audience, tradies writing a book. Well, I would say there would likely be a few people listening who think, well, maybe I should. Well, I would say if you think maybe you should, you definitely should, because it is a wonderful way, particularly if you're really looking at growing a business. If you want to grow a business that might become, broad and very scalable, maybe a franchise, maybe a licensing business, then to have something kind of sitting, under that really positions you as an expert can be a very good thing to do. The other thing might be, and I'm sure this is something that's very possibly on a list of yours somewhere, writing the ultimate guide to setting up as a plumber or the ultimate guide to setting up as an electrician. I mean, or whatever, those kind of books, they're very likely to do pretty damn well. And what, the point you made is how do you go about doing it? Now, not everybody enjoys writing. I have always enjoyed writing. However, when I set about doing this book, I was thinking, how can I do this little bit smarter? So one thing I did, which really worked so well for me, and I'll absolutely share this with any of the people listening because it might work for them, is in this day and age with artificial intelligence, we can babble away into our phones and we can then upload that to a website. There's one called Temi that I use, Temi, that then transcribes that for very, very low cost. If it's a single voice, it's very accurate. It's, every bit as accurate as Siri or, Google Voice, whatever. And it will transcribe that, and that can give you a sort of rough text. And that's what I did. Rather than sitting down laboriously, writing with a blank sheet of paper or a blank desktop, what I did was each day I would I'd sort of mapped out the themes for my book, the chapters, if you like. And then when I went out for a walk, I do a fair bit of walking as I get older. I'm told I'm going to live longer if I do that, so I do it. I go out with my little, I actually had a little dictaphone so that I didn't use my phone because I didn't want to be disturbed by those annoying people that ring you.
Yep.
So I just took my little dictaphone out. I sort of planted an idea in my mind, gave myself a good strong hit of caffeine, went off for a walk, and I would just babble away into my little dictaphone. I then get it transcribed, and that would give me a rough text. Now, it's so much easier when you've got sort of 2,000 words, and you'll get 2,000 words if you go and walk for half an hour. It's far easier, I found, to start editing with some rough text than it is to sit there with a blank sheet of paper. And what it also meant is if I saw something on YouTube or I read an article, again, I could just read the little bits that were relevant, send it off, have it transcribed, pretty well instantly. And little by little, I suddenly found myself with admittedly a very rough manuscript. But it's, as I say, it's easier to work, I found, with a rough manuscript and spend a few hours with listening to some music, headphones on, tidying up a manuscript than it is starting with nothing. Yeah. It's also the sort of thing that you can outsource. I could imagine somebody in their van babbling away how to set up an electrician's business or whatever it might be, and then just transcribing it and then maybe sending it to a sub-editor and paying that person not a lot of money to tidy it up for you. Little by little, you can get a book that just kind of forms in front of you. So if anyone listening is thinking of doing it, just give that a crack, because it really will. And anyone wants to talk to me about it, I'll tell them even more about how I did it. I'm very happy to do that.
Well, I'm standing here, and I'm standing up at my stand workstation, which I read in your book, mate, about frightening stats, something like 20% reduction in lifespan for men and 40% for women if we sit for 6 hours a day or something. So, frightening.
Well, tell you how stupid I am. I have a stand-up desk and I'm sitting down. I do find though that I the only reason I haven't wound it up this morning is I find, I don't know whether you do, I do some things better standing, some things better sitting. Yeah. Podcasts, I generally do standing. Don't ask me why I'm not standing today. I just didn't get around to it. But if I'm writing, which I was prior to talking with you, then I'm better doing that sitting. But yeah, gosh, if there's one, and that's one of the lovely things about so many of your audience, is they don't spend all day sitting down at a desk, which is why they're all going to live forever. So that's brilliant.
Although their backs will all be stuffed from
the backs will be
bending over and concreting and laying tiles. But I was certainly listening to you talk about that innovative way, I guess, that we can use these days to capture a book. And I'm standing here feeling a little bit guilty, actually, because I've been talking about and dreaming about writing a book for probably the last 5 or 6 years, maybe longer. It's definitely in there, and I really should just pull my finger out and get it done.
Well, the thing with that, Warwick, well said, and I hope you heard all that. You'll write it down and berate yourself later. The thing is, what I think as well is someone like you, right? You've been a specialist in this area for a number of years now. You sat on both sides of the toolbox, and you must have written and said so much in the last, I don't know how long, decade probably. And if I often think about this as a sort of, imagine in your office door behind you now, if a team of writing police burst through the door with one of those those things they pound doors open with, and they said, "Get in the corner, Warwick," and they stood you in the corner there, and they went through all your filing cabinets and all your hard drives. The chances are there's 20 or 30,000 words already kicking around your office somewhere.
Oh, easily. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's in there. And too often, I think, when people write a book, they think, I've got to start from scratch. You haven't. In most cases, you look around, there's so much stuff there already. So I'd let those writing police in, and just start, and you'll find articles you've written, emails you've written, podcast interviews you've given, all these. There is so much stuff. Your book's already there. It's just blowing around your office.
Yeah, pretty much.
And that is it. Making it all sound so simple, of course, but it's.
I'll have it done by next week, eh?
It's the discipline of pulling it together. And I use lots of old-fashioned tools. Maybe because I'm an old boy, I use old manila envelopes. I chuck ideas in there. All of those kind of things. And just little by little, you build it all up. And before you know it, you look at it, you go, Christ, I've got a book here.
Yeah. Now I've got to actually share it with people. And I think that's the scary part, isn't it?
Oh, well, yes and no.
And it's interesting, actually. I'm standing here thinking about tradies listening to this episode. And for those that are thinking, well, I'm never going to write a book and I have no interest in writing a book, there's a lot of validity in the comments and the I guess the strategies here around content creation for trade business owners. I mean, for any business owner, this is universally applicable. But if you think about, I think about some of the conversations I have with trade business owners about content marketing, and they're like, well, what the heck is that? It's like, well, just write a blog every time you do a cool job for a client or a horror job, Just go write a blog post about, I don't have time to sit down and I'm terrible at writing. But most of them can speak. and
Yes.
all of them have smartphones.
Yeah.
I use a service called Rev. I don't know how it compares to
That's not a bad one.
the one that you've talked about, Rob. But but it's like talking to your phone.
Yeah.
And imagine you're talking to your best mate or your dad or something. It's like, hey, g'day, just finished a job at Smith Street. Another example of someone doing something themselves and making a meal of it and blah blah blah, and then get that transcribed, bang a couple of photos into it, and there's a blog post.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, I've quite recently spoke at a conference. You would know Kate Toon, and she runs a big copywriting group and a copywriting conference. And I spoke at that conference a few weeks ago. I think 140 writers or so, lovely people. There are so many people that can write, and so many of us who think we can't. And a lot of these writers, and you can find them, if you just Google copywriters or Society of Editors, or you look at Upwork, there's so many places where you can find people who not only are good at it, but they love doing it, and they don't have to cost a fortune.
That's right.
Somebody who can't write will spend, a day writing their LinkedIn profile. And they'll think, well, I can't afford to pay anyone because I'm not going to pay someone 8 hours. What they don't realize is someone who can write won't take 8 hours writing a LinkedIn profile. They'll knock it out in 25 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. And your idea there, that's a perfect thing. It's just babble away into something and then find yourself, have as part of your team somebody who you can send that to on a daily, weekly, fortnightly basis, who will be willing to knock what you've got into shape. And there are plenty of people that do that. There's as many people love writing as all of us love what we do,
Yeah.
And
right.
And I think if content, to anyone listening, if content is an important thing, if Warwick or people like him are constantly in your ear going, why aren't you writing content? Why aren't you then, make today the day that you stop saying no to that, but go an easier way. Just do exactly as you said, Warwick. Babble into your phone. Source someone who can knock it into shape for you, and there you go. You've got yourself some content. And once you start, as you would know, once you start and you see what it does for you, it just becomes addictive. It's fantastic.
So I want to talk a bit more about the book, The 1 Minute Commute. And I must admit, when I read the title, I instantly thought of another series of books with 1 minute in, which I won't reference too heavily, just in case there's any.
No, not at all. Look, that's exactly why it's called that. We're riding on the back of the 1 Minute Manager.
Okay. I didn't want to get you in trouble or anything, Robert.
No secret at all. This title of this book is not my. I have no claim to fame there. My publisher came out with that. I had a really silly title.
Okay.
I can't remember. Mine was called Soul Trading, I think SOUL, which I thought was very clever. And they said, well, it is very clever, but no one understands it. No one's going to buy it. And if there's,
bad for marketing.
Exactly. My view of the world is listen to the people that actually know what they're doing. I can write the book, but I'm not a book seller. I'm not a book marketer. So if your publisher says to you, that's a stupid title, what about this title? I'm going to say yes. They could have called it. My view is if it's going to help sell more books, then call it what you like, within reason.
Well,
I mean, most books these days have got "fuck" in the title, and that seems to make them a lot. But thankfully, they didn't come up with any ideas with that. But I'm happy with that name. That was their name, and it was intentional. That it's got a people look at it and go, oh, I think I might have heard of that. Well, you haven't actually, but you have heard of the 1 Minute Manager.
Well, it did strike that that familiarity chord with me, and I'm very familiar with the 1 Minute Manager series, obviously being a business coach. But I was like, that's kind of clever, because then it was like, I'm already familiar with this book. Yeah,
I think it's kind of clever, but it's no thanks to me. I can.
But I do want to ask you, I guess, ask some questions around marketing and marketing for small business owners. Obviously, you founded Flying Solo and have by the sounds of it, quite successfully exited that business. You actually come from a marketing and advertising background. I mean, you sold was it an agency you sold to Saatchi & Saatchi?
Yes, that was 1,000 years ago, but yes.
So one of the things that I find, small businesses generically, but obviously, you know, we're talking to trade business owners here, and that's my specialty and my passion is generally they find marketing a little mysterious and a bit of a black art. Well, that's what they think it is. Yeah. You know, we've just touched on content marketing. I'm keen to get your, insight into, you know, from an experienced marketing person looking at a trade business, what are some of the tactics or broader strategies that they really should be thinking about in their business? Yeah,
well, look, that's a great question. I'm really pleased you've asked it because I feel really strongly about this. You know, I'd clearly, you know, I live in a home. I'm in it now, and on a fairly regular basis, it's like a 1930s home. So I've probably got a tradesman coming in here every few weeks, repairing something that I've bodged or whatever.
Yeah, so, that's usually the story.
Yeah, and, you know, I live in a part of Sydney where there's always development going on, so there's white vans hurtling up and down all the time. And being a home-based business, you know, when I go out for my walk, I'm desperate to talk to somebody, so I invariably end up talking to, you know, tradies that are here and around. So it's a market I know I enjoy, and I do observe some things with marketing. I think one of the key things is, I mean, look, taking content and SEO and all of those, I'm going to park all that to one side because I'm sure that's something that you cover in great detail, and it's something that people listening will know about. But where I still feel the biggest opportunity is, or the biggest kind of the leak, if you like, where people are missing out on opportunity is, again, a little bit more old school than that. And maybe it's because I'm in my 60s that I feel more comfortable in this space, but I still believe it to be true. I think, and that is word of mouth. Word of mouth is by far the greatest source of business for people in our sort of space. You as an independent professional, me as an independent professional, tradespeople. You know, that no matter what else we do, word of mouth is the thing that if we do it right, is going to keep ticking over. Whilst SEO and content are doing all the things they do, word of mouth is still there, but we just don't do enough with it. You know, and too often I fear that in our businesses, and I'll think of this from a tradesman's perspective, is when we finish a job, we get the hell out of there and we get on to the next job. Yep. You know, it's like often by the time we finished it, it's like enough already. I've seen enough of that family. I've crawled around on the floor of that house long enough. I'm gone, you know, and we go on to the next job. But what we leave behind us is an opportunity. And I think it's an opportunity that we could do more with than we do. And I'll give you, and some of this I'm pretty sure I spoke to you about the first time. But for example, from the minute somebody arrives in my home, and I'm using the instance of being a tradesperson at home, which I'm sure would cover a large percentage of your audience. You know, when you come into someone's home, you're coming into their personal space. So the first thing I'm interested in is it really how you present yourself to me, to my wife, to my child. What sort of care and attention do you pay to my home? You might even find it in your heart to say something like, what a lovely home, or I love that picture, or, you know, how's your young man getting on at school, or just something that makes me feel comfortable that, yeah, I'm happy to have this person in my home. So I think that's really an important thing, is the relationship starts the minute you pick up your phone, really, the minute an inquiry comes in there. And that's where I think word of mouth, you know, I can't think of really many weeks, or certainly many months going by when someone doesn't say to me, have you got a good electrician, or have you got a good plumber, or have you got a good painter? You know, it's what happens in communities all the time. People are always asking, do you know? And the first thing you think when you go to respond to that is not so much about price, which is what a lot of us get mistaken about. We think we have to be cheap, or some people think that. Yep. When somebody asks me if I know someone, I'm thinking, okay, whoever I put forward, I've got to be confident that they're going to walk through that person's home and be nice and decent to them. So a couple of years ago, I had an electrician here. Frankly, I was that close to reporting him to the police for being a guy who I thought to be mighty suspicious in every respect.
Yeah,
I couldn't wait to get the guy, just the energy of the guy. I won't get into detail, but
sure.
I couldn't wait to get him out of my home. I didn't want to leave him alone with my wife and child.
Yep.
Anyway, that was an exceptional case, but, I've got a painter, Steve, where I hadn't seen Steve, for 7 or 8 years. If he walked up to my front door now, I'd be delighted to see him. It's that sort of thing and when people ask you for a referral, you've got to think, do I feel safe referring this person? Because generally speaking, every electrician can do a good job. Every plumber can do a good job. Every painter can do a good job. It's not about how good the job is so much as how the people carry themselves. If they say they're coming at 10, are they going to come at 10, or does the whole house have to wait for an hour and a half whilst you finish off another job? Am I going to have to spend an hour cleaning up after you've gone, or are you going to do that for me? So word of mouth is a really key thing. And I think as tradespeople, what we can be doing is making more of that and following up more. It's too often the case is we finish the job and we bugger off. What we can be doing is actually getting back in touch, just, not in an uncomfortable or obnoxious way. And this is something that maybe your spouse or your partner or your friend could do, is just following up going, hey, I know Steve was in your house last week. You're happy with the job? Is everything done okay? Is there anything you'd like? Would you like the paint numbers that we use or anything like that? Just a little follow-up is so special. I quote in the book a bit of research by a guy called John Gatorno from University of Queensland. And he discovered that the main reason that people stop using a business is for a thing that he called perceived indifference. And 68% of people stop using a business or an independent, a contractor. They stop using them because of perceived indifference. And what that means is perceived indifference means I don't think this person gives a stuff.
Yep.
I don't think this person cares. And that's a pretty sad reason for losing a customer, because that customer just doesn't think you care. So if you walk away leaving a mess, doing a bit of a bodge that in your heart is a bit of a bodge and that someone's going to see it at some point, then that's a customer you're never going to hear from again. And 68% of customers leave a business because of perceived indifference, not because you're a little bit more expensive, not because you've not done the right sort of job, but because it just looks like you don't care.
Yeah.
So it's not difficult to show we care. It's not difficult. Caring is about paying a bit of interest, is cleaning up after yourself, is possibly doing a follow-up, is doing a little bit more maybe than you were asked to do, like removing the waste from the job, rather than just ramming it in the wrong recycling bin, or doing, that, or burying it under the garden and having no one see, that sort of stuff. Those are the things that make a real difference. And anyway, I'm kind of running on a bit here because my coffee was very strong, but that would be my main thing is just word of mouth. Gosh, if you can just do more with that, follow up more, pay a bit more attention. That's just the way to go. It seriously is like, Steve, my painter, I call him my painter, so he hasn't been in here for a number of years, but he's made contact, because he knows that when he painted this house, hopefully it won't show up on the year, that 5 or 6 years later of having, young kids in the house, it's probably due for a bit of a makeover. Well, it is. So Steve, if you're listening, get in touch, mate.
Yeah.
I'm hot to trot. But, but he does it. He's made contact. He sends me a card. He does those sorts of things, Small gestures can have a really big impact.
It's such a great point, and it's something that I challenge tradies on when I work with them, and even when I don't, is when they start to measure their inquiries and where they come from. And I had this recently with a panel beater client of mine. Got him to track his leads or his inquiries, and the large proportion, I think it was something like 60 or 70% of his inquiry, he noted down as word of mouth. And I said, so where is that coming from? Like, whose word of mouth? Is that from your customers? Is it from other trades? Like, where's it coming from? How is that being generated? What are you doing to, get more of that and actually thank the people that you're getting that from? And he said,
totally.
What do you mean?
And that's the thing.
He gets a lot of referral business from car dealers when, they take delivery of a new car, the staff, damage it in the yard, and it happens more often than you would think. And so they urgently send these cars around for him to patch up little dings in the doors and that sort of stuff before the customer takes delivery. I said, pick the top 5 that send you the most work, go get some pizzas from your mate's cafe, and just drop down around there one Friday with enough pizzas for all the sales staff and everything. It's like, hey guys, just thanks for the business. He sent me a message back. He's like, mate, that was the best idea. They were just blown away and said, look, we would have given you the work anyway, but thank you so much,
Absolutely. That's a brilliant idea. That's a brilliant idea. And look, it's my father was in the motor business, so I know about damaging cars. Because I was the one that damaged a few of them. But yeah, you're so right. And, I think things like, that if you've got a case there where you've got, a dealership that is bringing you good business. And the other thing is, often what we will say as marketing people say, well, you need to go and, pitch up and see that dealership. And our customers or clients go, yeah, sure, I'll do that. And of course, they never do that because they don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
But one way is to just go in with one of your junior staff, someone who's just joined your business, and say, right, come with me, mate. We're just going to go and have a look around, our local Holden dealer. And all you do is you go onto the forecourt, you go and see the salesman, you go, look, if you wonder what we're doing, I've just got this, my young guy's just joined me, and I just want to show him some of the typical little bits of damage that appear on cars, just to give him a bit of an insight into how things work. And just walk. So, whilst you're there, the sales manager sees you, all the sales team see you, the service manager sees, what are those panel beaters doing there? What are they doing on site? And what you're doing is you're walking around, you're being seen, and you're pointing to things, and one of the business that I sold years ago, to Saatchi and Saatchi, this was in a time when it was a sort of design and promotions business. And these were in the days when you created artwork on big bits of board. It wasn't digital, nothing was digital. And one of the things I used to do, if ever we were a bit quiet, is I'd take my big I forget what they're called, but like a plans case. It was like a big A1, big document bag with nothing in it. And I'd go to my main client, who's a big brewery client who had a number of brands, and I'd literally just walk up and down the corridors where all the product managers were working. And, when you walk past one person's office, they all assume that you're picking up a job from one of their... I wasn't picking a job from anybody, but I just go there with my empty thing, and I'd just walk up and down the corridors. I'd stop at the coffee machine, have a coffee, and every single time I did that, what it did was it showed people, oh, there's that guy, Robert, from that company. Yeah. And I can't remember a time when someone didn't say, just the man. Can he come in and quote on this sort of job? I'd always come back with a job. But, there were probably times when I didn't. But even when I didn't, I always came back having had 2 or 3 conversations and reminding people that I'm here. Now, a couple of years ago, we could do that with emails. But these days, every man and his dog is doing it with emails. And email is, dying a very slow death. I think people don't look at it because it's too intimidating. But turning up in person, as you said, sending pizzas or just appearing on the spot. Hey, I'm just here with one of my staff. Just wanted to show him the job that we did. Just want to show them the gutters that we fitted on your house. It's fantastic. All the neighbors see it. Everyone else sees it. Brilliant. The other thing I would also say is things like that with gutters, anything that's external, is just drop a flyer around every house that you can walk to within 10 minutes saying, hey, in case you're wondering why number 4 looks so shiny, because I've just painted it.
Yeah.
I'll be back here next week if you want me to quote on your place. These are simple steps.
Yeah.
But the things that make a real difference. And I talk about it in the book.
Fancy that.
Sorry.
I was wondering if we could work another plug in there for the book, Robert. But I'm sort of stuck on this word of mouth thing because it is such a big area that I think baffles people. The question that often comes up is, well, how do I get more word of mouth business? If it's so powerful and so valuable to my business, how do I get more of it rather than just have it as a spontaneous thing?
Well, that's a good question. I've got an answer for you. The thing with word of mouth is what most people do is that we just sit around and wait till the phone to ring and go, oh, word of mouth, that was nice, thank you. But we can do stuff to accelerate it. And I do go through a whole little path in the book, but let me give it to you now so you can save yourself $30. The thing with word of mouth is that we absolutely can accelerate it, and we can do it in a number of ways. One of the things is that often what happens, well, let me just backtrack. The best way to think about this is if you think about people around you now, there are some people that you know are really strong supporters of what you do. You kind of feel their warmth. Whenever you meet them or talk with them, you kind of feel their warmth. I feel it from you, Warwick, and I hope you feel it from me. I will always talk about you if it's relevant, and I know you talk about me because you've opened doors for me already. So, and if anyone in business, if you stop and have a think, there will be people around you now that are what I would call advocates for you. They're not necessarily past customers. They might be friends. They might be family. They might be people you meet at the school pickup. They might be an old mate from school. There are a group of people who you know are always helping you when they can. So they are your advocates. They're the people to concentrate on, because those are the people who are already doing it for you. So the first thing you can do is maybe have a barbecue one Sunday and just invite those 5 or 6 or 10 people around and go, hey guys, in case you wonder why you're all here, you're here, and I bought the luxury sausages today because I want to thank you, because every one of you has helped me in this first 5 years or first 2 years of my business, and I just want to get you here and say thank you very much. And if you've got more people you can nudge my way, please do. Ideally, they will live within a 5-kilometer radius, and they'll give them your spiel. Yep. That's the first thing to do. But then within sort of just outside that group are another group of people that like what you do, but they're not actually referring for you. But you can sense that, they're supportive of you, but they're not doing anything for you. And one of the reasons they don't is these are the people that when they say, how are you going, Warwick? You go, oh, beauty, mate. Everything's fantastic. Couldn't be better. That's what we tend to do. To these nice people, we go, oh, everything's great. Really busy. What we could be saying to help accelerate word of mouth a little bit is saying, everything is going really well. I'm just looking for 3 more houses to paint in the next 2 weeks or the next 2 months. If you happen to know anyone, please nudge them my way. We can ask people. The mistake a lot of businesses make is we ask for referrals with people we've hardly met. And that's a bit like asking a woman if you can kiss her when you've literally just met her in a queue for a bus. It's kind of...
Have you tried that before, Roy?
I might have done, but we have to. The relationship has to be in the right place. What businesses often do is they're clumsy with asking for referrals, and so it doesn't work. They get a bad reaction, and then they think, "Well, I'm never doing that again." But that's not the way we should be doing it. What we should be doing is looking at where the relationship is, how well do people know what we do, how comfortable do we feel with them. And when they're fans or advocates, then we can say, hey, I wonder if you could help me. I'm looking for these sort of people. Yeah. And if you've got people outside of that, who aren't as close to you as that, well, then the job there is to get a bit closer to them, and just say, hey, just wondering, I can see that you could maybe do with a bit of paintwork on your house. I'm not pitching for the work here. I just wanted to give you some advice. If you ever want me to come over, just give you an idea of, the sort of finishes and things you could have. I'll be in the street all week. I'm very happy to pop by and have a chat with you. That sort of thing will draw people closer. And in our business, that's our job. Get more people into the center, fans and advocates. Yep. That's how to accelerate word of mouth in a sort of, that's a brief summary anyway.
No, that's awesome.
What we can do.
And look, I'll admit to being, I think I do a reasonable job with my fans, the people in that core group that you mentioned. Because I do get referral business, and it's predominantly where most of my business comes from. But as I enter more of the digital space, and probably a bit of a late entrant, to be honest, of email marketing and webinars and all those sorts of things, because I'm passionate about touching more people and helping more tradies, I think I don't do as good a job of that next layer out of, the people who know me but don't actively refer to me. I don't really ask them or, connect with them as well as I could. So, that's part of the reason I've started a little not a secret group, a closed group for tradies, because I want to start talking to more people in that way. And I think,
Look, I'm delighted that I've got you to confess in front of a live audience. And you're not alone. I mean, I stand here as if I've got all this nailed. I haven't at all. I know I could do a lot better than that. But, it's really interesting. Like even, when did I write a new book? When this new book came out, I bought, because that's the only thing when you've got a publisher, you've got to buy your own copies. I bought a number of copies from my publisher.
About 4,000.
And I sent them out to my fans.
Mm-hmm.
Like I sent about, I think I've sent 15 or 18 so far. Just to people I thought, who haven't I spoken to for a while? So I've sent them out over the last couple of weeks, and I've been getting the most beautiful responses back from people. One of which is likely to turn into a very lucrative speaking gig, and probably wouldn't have done if I hadn't reminded them that I still have a heartbeat and I'm still alive. But these are the things that we can do, and again, is if, like, as you're saying, word of mouth can be an issue. Well, next time you go into a bookshop, I'm not going to make some corny suggestion that you buy a load of my books, but there'll be a box of books over on one side that are reduced to $5 a copy, or you'll see those big bookstalls in, supermarkets that are selling books like that. If you see something and you think, I know someone who could benefit from that, whether it's to do with your work or relationships with teenagers or relationships with the opposite sex or cooking, on a budget, or, if you just gobble up that stuff and send it to them going, hey, walked through the shop last week, saw this book on cooking Indian food. I know you're a real fan. There you go, mate. I just thought I had to get it for you. It's a little gesture. It might cost you $10, but if it leads into a referral that will give you a speaking gig or a column in a newspaper or whatever, that's a good investment.
Absolutely.
And so we don't have to generate all this stuff ourselves. We just have to keep those people front of mind. Who are the people that are already supporting me, and how can I better support them? That's the key. Because far easier, as we both know, far easier to grow our business with the people already around us than to constantly be pursuing new people.
Oh, it's expensive,
you've got to go through that whole process. Time consuming. You've got to get to know. Whereas if somebody says, see Dave, he's the guy who'll fix up your plumbing, job done. You walk up the door's open. Do you want a cup of tea, Dave? You're onto the job. None of this chatting up and doing all the spiel. You don't have to do any of that when you've been referred. It's all the doors. It's all open for you.
That's right. Such great advice, mate. Now, I hear you've written a book, Robert. So, mate, any, I guess, like, from the author's perspective, I'm always curious when someone writes a book, do you have, like, a part of the book that you're proudest of, or that is the most personal bit of the book where it's like, I really wanted that to be in the book? Is there a part of the book like that for you? The 1 Minute Commute?
Gosh, that's interesting, isn't it? Look, I think what I like most about the book is I've really enjoyed writing it. Okay. And somebody's already said to me that what they enjoy from reading it is it sounds like just having a conversation with me. That's what I love the most, is the fact that I've succeeded, I believe, in writing the kind of book that I would like to read, in that it's not difficult. I mean, every day of my life for the last 15 years, I've been involved in small business. And whenever anybody says, oh, he's a business expert, I wince, because I think, really? Is that who I am?
Yeah.
Because I don't consider myself to be any kind of business. I just love people, and I love creative pursuit of kind of work and life. That's what I enjoy. And the fact that I've been able to write this in a way that I've really enjoyed writing it, and I think people will enjoy reading it, that's what I'm proudest of. Is because, on my tombstone, it's not going to say anything about he wrote the 1 Minute Commute.
Hopefully not, anyway.
No, but I like the fact that I've enjoyed it, that I think people can sort of hear my smile as they read it. I did a talk recently where somebody said at the end of it, it was like watching a stand-up comedian. I loved that. Not saying that I am that funny, but I love that one person at least thought I was.
Your son probably doesn't think so.
No, he doesn't. but he'll read that one day, poor little bugger, and I think he gets a mention in them all the times, and he'd like.
Yeah.
And Yeah, so I think that's the thing is I enjoy it because it's a true reflection of who I am. I haven't written it thinking if I write this, I'm going to flog a lot. I've written it thinking I just wrote what I wanted to write. I showed it to a publisher kind of half-heartedly. And to my total surprise, the publisher, Pam Macmillan, said, yeah, we'll publish that. I went, bloody hell, really? Okay. So that's what I'm most proud of is it's not written to order. It's written the way I want to write it,
Well, I would certainly echo that, Rob, and I happen to have a copy here too, mate. But as I was reading it, it was like speaking to you or listening to you speak. You write as you speak. But the content is great as well, and I love some of the myths that you bust in here around, basically, I guess, small business, but what tradies would often refer to as being a sole trader, which so many of them are. And there's some great myths in here about, real work happens in real offices and, work being all about money and bigger is better and all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
So, some great stuff in there, mate. And
thank you. Well, it was just finally on that. It was interesting. I was luckily invited to be on Channel 10 Breakfast Show a couple of weeks ago. And the woman who introduced me came out with this story that everybody has, that everybody in small business, we're all struggling and it's hard work and we work 12 hours a day and all weekend. And I just so disagree with that. I know I'm not suggesting that some people listening are not doing it tough. I know business is not easy, but this perception that running a small business is the hardest thing you've ever done. I just think, when I go down, I don't live too far from Bondi Beach. When I go down there, if I manage to skive off in the afternoon for a walk, there's an awful lot of white vans parked on the side and an awful lot of guys out on surfboards who really ought to be working.
Yeah.
You know, and I think, I'm sorry, but yes, I know business can be tough, but it doesn't have to be tough. No. If we do things right, we can and should enjoy our businesses so that when we get home after a day's work, we're a nice person to be around. For a while when I was in a corporate job, when I got home at night, I'd practically sort of push my children aside so I could get the beer out of the fridge faster and then start to become a human again. Since I've run my own business, I've never been like that. And I would say to people listening, yes, I know I'm not saying it isn't tough at times, but come on. We've got the opportunity to create beautiful businesses, to live our lives the way we want to live them. If the sun shines and the surf's up, we can turn the phone off and go and catch a few waves. We can go and sit in a cafe and do a bit of work. We have that. I mean, let's keep it quiet.
Yeah. But, don't tell everybody, mate. They'll all be doing it.
No, but we can and should do those things. And I believe if we're not living that sort of life now, then we need to have a fresh look at it and, spend $30 on my book. If it doesn't do what you want it to do, send me a note and I'll send you your money back. I will, because I believe it will help. And that's the thing. That's the message I want to get out there is if you're not enjoying the little business you're running, then we need to change things. Well,
I think you've wrapped that up nicely, Rob. I think that's a perfect place to finish our chat, mate. I usually ask the whole, 1,000 tradies in a room, one piece of advice, and I think you've just very eloquently communicated that. So, mate, any final parting shots you want to make it? I mean, parting words of wisdom you want to make with?
Yeah, the final one is I just like in front of witnesses, just your commitment, Warwick. When you're going to get your first draft done, mate? Come on.
Well, I turned 45 yesterday as we record this, so maybe I'll commit to before my 46th birthday, mate. I'll give myself 364 days. How's that?
You heard it here first.
And it's on video too. I've started doing video of my podcast, mate. So thank you for submitting yourself to that process.
It's a pleasure. Look, it's been great, Warwick. Thank you so much. And I definitely would like to get you back on the Flying Solo podcast.
It's a deal, mate. It's a deal. Now, just quickly before you go, if people are listening to this and it's like, I want to get a copy of this fantastic book that these guys have been talking about, what's the best way to do that and also to learn more about you, Rob?
Oh, you mean this book?
Yes.
Well, they can happily, any good bookshop has pretty well definitely got copies at the moment. So it's called The 1 Minute Commute. If you can't find it there, if you Google it, I know it's available on Booktopia, and I think Amazon have got it now as well.
Nice.
Or if you head to my website, which is robertgerrish.com, you'll find links there where you can buy it. So yeah, look, all good bookshops. And very shortly, no doubt, copies in St. Vinny's, but that might take a while longer.
That'll be once mine comes out, mate.
Yeah, and libraries, actually. Libraries have bought a few copies. So you can, and there's even one coming out with big type for people of my age. So
great. So no excuse not to read The 1 Minute Commute.
No. I haven't got an audio version yet, but I will. I'm working on it.
Read by somebody sultry and very attractive, I'm sure.
Oh, that's very kind of you. Thank you.
Well, mate, pleasure as always talking to you, Robert. We really should do this more often, mate.
Thanks, mate.
And great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
See you.
Well, there it is. How'd you go? Did you get some value out of that? Were you thinking, oh, yeah, that sounds like me? Or were you like me, thinking, oh, I need to commit to something and do it on air on a national podcast so that thousands of people can keep you accountable? So I've started working on my book. I'm still trying to work out what to do. But I'll get there. I have committed to do it in the next 12 months. So keep an eye out for that one. But if you would like to get some more stuff, some more value, some more tips, ideas, feedback from real life people, it's great that you listen to the podcast and you get value from this. But you could actually get some live conversation happening. Head over to Facebook. I know you love it. Everybody does, apparently. And even if you don't, it's part of life. So head over to Facebook, search groups. So search in the groups part of Facebook for Tradies in Business. Super, super simple. Tradies in Business. It's a group in Facebook. Go and request to join. And you know what? Good old Woz will approve your request automatically. If you say, I listened to the show, I'll just approve you straight away without grilling you with 1,000 questions. How's that? Head on over to the group, jump in there, intro yourself, and you can start talking to other tradies. I'm hanging out in there, answering questions, posting content. People like Rob are joining up, and you're getting access to other experts in their fields. People like, James from Bill Chaser in there, so our previous episode. So yeah, go and jump in there. Tradies in Business on Facebook. It's a group. It's closed so that we only let tradies and their supporters in and not a bunch of numpties. And I'd love to see you in there. It's free. You can get some free tips and advice. And you know what? You could give your mates a hand. Help your fellow tradies out. So look forward to seeing you in there. Thanks for joining me on today's episode. Looking forward to some of the ones I've got coming up. Got some more cool guests. And hey, if you've got ideas for guests or people that you'd like to hear from on the show, even past guests, give me a yell, drop me a message on Facebook, or go and join the group and tell me in there. Hey, there's a thought. Alrighty. Until next episode, hooroo.
You've been listening to the Tradies Business Show with Warwick Bidwell. Want to get off the tools and into true business ownership? Find out how at tradiesbusinessshow.com.